So, making my way to the game now for Tigers versus Stormers. Maybe thinking, oh, Rugby Illuminati, you're driving to the game, but you're not getting the train like everybody else. One, and there's 3 points, I think, to this. One, after the last video I shared, I actually had some rice that was in the fridge. It was old, and I stupidly thought this will be fine with the chili. And I got food poisoning from pretty much from Wednesday onwards. So I have been pissing out of my arse for basically 4 days.
Is that normal pooing you're doing?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So I thought, if I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to have a couple of beers, might as well drive to the game. So, and then there's number 2, which is the train system sucks. Don't get me wrong. If I was feeling normal and I was going to have a couple of beers at the game, I'd go on the train. I feel kind of like the opposite of, the, what's the phrase? Look good, feel good, be good. I don't know what the fuck it is. But I kind of feel the opposite, where I feel bad, look bad, feel bad. I've just said feel bad twice, but whatever. Enough about me. Let's talk about this game, eh? So, as some of you are aware, the Stormers have chosen what looks like a second team, a B team, and I'm a little bit disappointed, mainly because, I was really looking forward to seeing a Pollard-Libok showdown. Not because there was I don't think there's any bad blood between the two players. I mean, I think the Springboks are probably one of the tightest cohesive units in terms of a squad, in terms of an international squad. I don't think there's a lot that can bring them apart. I think if someone was selected over somebody else, I think this is true for probably a lot of international teams, I don't think anybody's going to take it badly and want a revenge game. I was more interested because they are the two starting Springbok 10s in the World Cup. Obviously Pollard came in and relieved Libok in the final, one that didn't win the game for them, but was a big part of the reason why they won the game in the final. Pollard's come back and he's been sensational for Leicester so far. For those of you that haven't been keeping a close eye on Leicester, I don't suppose you would unless you're a fan of them. Leicester started off the season pretty ropey. They have a lot of internationals, so during the World Cup, they were missing a lot of starters. I think they had some performances that were quite. They were fiery. They showed something at least, but they just lost continuously. And then one of the first videos that I did post World Cup was going to watch Leicester versus Harlequins, where they lost again, but that's when the World Cup returners came back, but they looked a little bit rusty. Ever since that game, Leicester have just looked not unbeatable, but they've looked really solid. Mistake-free, playing the rugby that they want to play, the style they want to play, Dan McKellar wants to play, territory, forcing opposition to make mistakes, looking dangerous in attack. They just look a lot more cohesive, and they need to. At the moment in the Premiership, they are not high. They are, I believe, 7th or 6th. So they've got a lot of catching up to do with the other guys. As I said, the Premiership seems to be incredibly competitive this year. I think any of 6 teams could win it, and I think Leicester are one of them, but they're bottom of the pile right now. But this is Champions Cup rugby. Obviously, it's Europe; it's a different competition. But we've kind of gone with the same squad that's been doing really good for us back in the Premiership. Obviously, Pollard, Catter at 12. I think it's Matt Scott at 13. Dan Kelly has been playing in that shirt as well. Both have been doing a pretty good job, to be honest with you. I'm kind of excited for Dan Kelly a little bit more than Matt Scott, but that's fine. The wingers are also playing well as well, except from Haskell Collins. I'm hoping this is maybe a game that Haskell Collins is a little bit more involved. Freddie Stewart at fullback. I feel like Leicester also now have the same thing that England have, where they have a choice of 15s of what they want to do. Do they want to keep possession aka they play Mike Brown, who's better in attack, or do they want to be really comfortable under the high ball, and then they pick Freddie Stewart? So they have those options. The pack in general is very, very good. The two young England locks in the form of George Martin and Ollie Chesham. And in general, like Tommy Raffel has come back from the World Cup. Obviously, he got ousted by Jack Morgan in Wales, but he's looked like top tier, world top open side flanker. So he's been so good, and Jasper Wiese has been back to his best after not really playing that much in the World Cup and losing his shirt to Dwayne Vermeulen. So that's Leicester. Now there's going to be a little bit less talking about the Stormers because I don't know a huge amount about them. But what I have noticed is that the majority of their starters are not playing today, and the reason that I saw that is because I looked at the team and there weren't many names on there that I recognised. Right, Libok was one of them. There's a few others as well. So for me, this very much now kind of falls to the Stormers thinking, well, if we get something from this game, it's a bonus. Maybe they get a losing bonus point, or they get a bonus point for getting 4 tries. Who knows? Against Leicester's defence, how it's been recently, I doubt that. Leicester's defence has been really, really good, really stout. Just tighten that up a little bit. But the worst possible thing that could happen here for Leicester is if you lose. You cannot lose this game. Not with how the competition's set up, where every week in Europe you're playing like another kind of superstar club. You have to win this game. There's no two ways about it. From what has turned into what you would think would be a competitive, you got to show up, and like if you could maybe get a moral victory if you didn't win the game. That's not the case for Leicester today. If they want to be taken seriously in Europe, they have to start right, and they have to start with a win today. There's no two ways about it. And because of that, that can sometimes add pressure, because if you know that you're expected to win, and you know this is an opportunity to win because the opposition hasn't had a chance to field their top squad, then it turns into what an old coach of mine used to call a banana slip game, right? And that is where you're very conscious that you should be winning, very conscious that you should, like, everything is in your favour to win, and because that's in your head, you can't win. You end up just, not taking it as seriously, or you feel like you don't have to be fully up for it, and it's a risk. Obviously, these are professionals, and you think that that's probably like it doesn't factor into their head as much as the average amateur does on a Saturday, where they're playing like bottom of the league and they're top of their amateur league. But I think it's still a factor. These are humans. Humans have emotions, and they're definitely factoring it into them. So, yeah, it's weird coming over to this game because my thoughts are now thinking anything other than a win here today, and it's going to be very deflating, and the deflation would probably carry over to not just this game, but it could knock Leicester's confidence. And after they've started so well with their starters coming back from the World Cup, this could be a real guy's driving like an asshole. This could be a real killer of momentum if they don't get the win today. And even if they win and it's not convincing, and they just look like they trip over themselves constantly, that could also scupper their confidence as well. From what I understand as well, from one of the comments, is that one of the main things as well with the Stormers, I realise I'm just repeating myself, or I'm just trying to get on the motorway, sorry, is that they play a very different style of rugby to Leicester. They're a bit more open. They're not really a typical South African style of rugby. They're not a Springbok style of rugby. They're going to try and run all over the place. And I think that if the substitutes that they have are coming on and they get a start, and this is a rare start for them, then they're probably going to be willing to just throw the ball around. Now, I don't know if you can see out the window at all, but the weather today is just terrible. It's rain. There are bits of sunshine in between, but the ball is going to be very, very slippy. It's going to be a game where if you're going to throw the ball around, you've got to be confident doing it, because you're going to make a mistake if you have even a slip in concentration. you would think maybe that the South African players travelling so far, maybe they won't have jet lag. I mean, that's obviously the advantage of them being in South Africa, but they may be a bit more tired than Leicester. I don't know when they travelled up. But yeah, you can see the way that I'm talking about it, where as a Leicester fan, I'm more concerned about what could go wrong rather than excited for what could go right, which is what I would be feeling if I was going to a game that all the stars for the Stormers were playing. So that's me. Not sure I got a huge more else to say about this at this point. See if we can get Dad's thoughts when we get to the game as well. Meeting them up, see what they feel like. But I think that's it for me from the car journey.
But they will head for tea with a full fat 5 Champions Cup points.
So, thoughts?
Well, it was in the end. It was a good game, and I think Leicester Tigers will be very pleased that they won a bit more comfortably than they looked like they were going to earlier on. Stormers, I think, will be disappointed. They've played really well, and although a lot of their first team players weren't present, the guys who were picked and turned up were very good. And for probably about 3/4 of the game, I think Stormers could have really comfortably thought they could have won that, and I think Tigers would have been very disappointed to have lost it. But they got through in the end, and I think they'll be pleased with the result in the end. They probably won't be pleased with the whole performance. I think they'll be a bit disappointed with some of their game, but all those things I think they can work on and put right. And it's a good start for them. It's a home win. And I think...
Yeah, no, I probably echo a lot of the same. It didn't really feel fair that right at the end the Stormers lost the bonus point for the loss, and they also allowed Tigers to get the bonus point for the win, considering how well they played.
Yeah.
I think a couple of special mentions for the Stormers. I didn't get the names of the 15 and the 10 in particular.
Yes.
They were both of them. I don't think maybe the 15 is the starter, but I know the 10's not, because their 10 is usually Manny Libok. But they were both. The 10's goal kicking and attack was fantastic.
Yes.
And that 15 is an absolute lightning bolt in terms of just being a spark of attack.
He's lovely, a beautiful runner, number 15.
Yeah.
And their number 10, a lovely player. And I think his kicking was excellent. It kept them in the game when it was quite tight. And yes, with a bit more space, their fullback could have been even more devastating than he was.
I think on Leicester's side, I think there were some not so great performances from players such as Freddie Stewart, but I think obviously Andre Pollard got man of the match. I think Jasper Wiese, I've said when Jasper came back from the World Cup, especially with the Harlequins game, he looked a little bit rusty.
Yeah.
Didn't look like himself. I think in this game we saw him back to his best.
Yes.
His ball carrying was sensational today. Always got off the gain line, took 3 or 4 men with him every single time he ran. I think the refereeing at the scrum time was a little bit off. I'm not sure. I don't think it was as bad as the crowd made it out to be. I think there was sometimes the Stormers were on top and sometimes the Tigers were on top, but I don't think he necessarily always got it the right way around. And I think he kind of penalised the wrong time. Both teams sometimes the wrong time at the wrong place. I think it was a very, very sloppy first half from Tigers. They started off hot. They came in with a try, and then they just kind of seemed to just kind of melt away a little bit, as though they thought the job was already done. Very aware, because what I've said in the preamble to this is that it's a banana skin game for Tigers with the B team coming in. The win is more expected. And it kind of felt like that after that. After that initial try, the Stormers got into it. The Stormers' defence again is something that I wanted to mention. That was sensational.
Very good. We chatted about that just before half time, didn't we? And we both thought.
And how pleased the Stormers head coach will be to be like, right, these are not my starters, but at least if I bring these guys on in an important game, they know the system. They can do it. They'll at least be able to fill in. And there won't be a weak point. So I think that's some positives for them for sure. Other
The
than
injuries for
Huge.
Leicester Tigers
Huge.
might be a little bit of a concern. Several of the guys took some quite nasty knocks.
Yeah.
We just have to hope for them that they're only temporary. But it might be an expensive game from that point of view for
Absolutely.
Tigers. Yeah.
And I was thinking that they've got to get the win now, especially with the amount of injuries they got. They've got to get
Yes.
something from it.
Yeah.
So many people went down. Jasper Wiese got knocked in the head for there was just one yellow card for one player, which I think was maybe, I would question that call a little bit.
Yeah.
Talking about the injury side of things, I saw Freddie Stewart getting some strapping on him as
Yeah.
himself. Dan Cole looked like he took a stinger.
Big second row.
Matt Scott came off. Cam Henderson came off. I mean, these are all really important names for Leicester.
Yeah.
These aren't guys that are fill-in guys by any stretch of the imagination. So you just hope that they all kind of have a speedy recovery. And they've got, I can't remember who they've got next week. I think it might be someone like Leinster.
So it's in more than one way, especially the
Yes.
group they're in. It
Yeah.
could be very expensive.
I'm not sure if it is Leinster, so forgive me if I've gotten that wrong.
No.
But I think they've got quite a hell of a matchup next week as well. But yeah, they managed to get a bonus point win out of it, so you can't ask for much more.
No, especially from what I can remember, it's a really tough group.
Yeah.
It looks that way anyway on paper,
Yeah.
and they need to get as many points as they can whenever they can.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. I think we'll leave it there.
I will leave it there. Good evening. I enjoy it.
Yeah,
A bit
it's
cold.
good.
Could have
Yeah.
done with a pair of gloves,
Yeah.
but never mind.
Yeah.